Hari Om. We will be talking about the endocrine system now. Now, the body functions, the human body function is controlled by two main systems in our body. First is the nervous system, and the second is the endocrine system. The nervous system consists of the brain, the spinal cord, and the endocrine system. It consists of various glands which produce certain substances, certain chemicals, which are called as hormones. And then these hormones, they control the functioning of various parts, various organs in our body. The major difference between the nervous system and the endocrine system is that the nervous system comes into action, controls those functions where we need to take a bit quick decision. For example, movement of our hands, legs, it's controlled by the nervous system. On the other hand, the functions, the processes which are continuously going on in our body for a long duration of time are controlled by the endocrine system, by the hormonal glands. For example, growth of the body. It's a continuous process which will be controlled by the hormones. Another simple example is the menstrual cycle in women. It's a continuous process. There are various hormones which increase and decrease during the menstrual cycle. So it's a continuous process which is controlled by the hormones, by the endocrine system. Now, as I said, the endocrine system is made up of various glands. So the main glands involved in the endocrine system are the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, thyroid, thymus, adrenal glands, the pancreas, the ovaries in women, and testes in men. Now, this is just a brief idea for the location of the various important endocrine glands. The pituitary, and just for understanding purpose, even the pineal gland, their position, their location is in the brain, in the center of the brain, and the Ajna chakra or the eyebrow center is considered as the point where these glands they are situated. But it's not in the eyebrow center, it is deep inside at the level of the eyebrow center. Next, the thyroid gland is in our throat area, the neck area. Then the thymus, it's behind the chest bone, sternum it is called. So you can just understand behind the chest bone. Then the adrenal glands, they are down below in the abdomen above the kidneys. Now these adrenal glands, they are a pair of them, one on the right side and one on the left side. And the pancreas is just behind the stomach and the duodenum in the abdominal area. Then lower in the abdomen in women there are the ovaries, and in men there are the testes. So it's just a rough idea where these glands they are located. At the starting of the session, we used one word, hormone. So, the simple meaning of a hormone is a messenger. It carries signals from one place to another place, from one cell to another cell. So, the function of a hormone is to carry information, is to carry the order to the cells which are sensitive to that hormone. So, the hormones are being secreted continuously in our body. They reach their target cell, they reach the part of the body where their action is expected, and the action is carried out by that organ or that part of our body. So you can simply say that hormone is a chemical messenger, and the actual meaning of the word hormone is to set in motion. So simply to set in motion the function of that organ, that is what we can understand. In our body, there are two types of hormones or two types of chemicals which are released by various glands in the body. So the meaning endocrine, or what we are trying to focus now, the endocrine system or the endocrine glands, these are the hormones or these are the glands which secrete the hormones which directly enter into the bloodstream. For example, if you want to check the level of your thyroid hormone, what do? They collect your blood sample and then they check the level of thyroid hormones in your blood. That means that the thyroid gland secreted the thyroid hormone and released it directly into the blood. So it is present, it is seen all over the body in your bloodstream. So that is called as an endocrine hormone, where the glands secrete the hormone, secrete the chemical, and release it directly into the bloodstream. Another word is exocrine hormones. So these exocrine hormones or these exocrine chemicals, they are released into a particular part of our body. They do not enter, they do not flow in the bloodstream. So they enter in some part of the body, either through the duct or from one cell to another cell by the process of diffusion. One example to understand is the salivary glands. Our mouth is always moist and we have a watery secretion in the mouth which is called as saliva. So this saliva is exocrine hormone which is secreted in the salivary gland. And once the salivary gland secretes this hormone, it enters into our mouth. The saliva cannot be found in any other part of our body except the mouth. So this is called as an exocrine secretion or an exocrine hormone. The function of endocrine and exocrine secretions is more or less the same to get the work done. So now we focus on the endocrine hormones or the endocrine secretion. The first important hormonal gland, endocrine gland, is the pineal body. Now it is situated at the Ajna chakra, eyebrow center, and the main function of this pineal body is to produce melatonin. And it has a regulation, it has a role in regulating our biological cycle, biological clock. Like we are awake during the day and we sleep during the night. That's a part of our biological clock. So that biological clock is maintained by this melatonin. And there is one more secretion, it's called as melanocytes. It's an antioxidant, so it works as an antioxidant in our body. Interestingly, this gland is very active when we are born during our childhood. But as our age increases, the function of this gland it slows down, and by the end of our puberty age, this gland has solidified, this gland has calcified. So in adults, this pineal body, this pineal gland is calcified, and it has been associated that when this pineal gland stops its functioning, slows down its functioning, that's the point when the testes and ovaries they start their functioning to the maximum. Or in short, I can say that during the time of puberty, the pineal body, the pineal gland slows down its function, and the testes and ovaries are activated more. It has been observed that the longer the pineal body remains active, the puberty of the child is delayed. But then, even though medical science has made a lot of progress, still we are having less information and a bit controversial information about this pineal body or the pineal. Coming to the next important gland is the pituitary gland. Now it's called as the master of all the endocrine glands. It is called as the queen of all endocrine glands because this pituitary gland it actually controls all the other endocrine glands. It controls the thyroid, it controls the adrenal glands, it controls the pancreas, it even controls the testes and the ovaries. So the pineal gland, the pituitary gland is the master of all other hormonal glands. And at the same time, it controls some major functions, some major processes in our body. Just a few examples. The growth of our body is controlled by this pituitary gland. Our blood pressure is controlled by this pituitary gland. Of course, there are other factors which help in this growth, blood pressure, and other things, but the main role is of the pituitary gland. It's also beneficial, it is also helpful during pregnancy, during childbirth, or the uterine contractions. Then the pituitary gland is also related with production of breast milk, controlling over the testes and the ovaries in men and women respectively. It helps in metabolism. Obviously, when I say it helps in metabolism, it controls the thyroid function, and at the same time, it controls the water balance in our body. So many functions are carried out by the gland. Now, this pituitary gland, it has two parts, the anterior and the posterior. So here is a list of hormones which are produced by the anterior gland or the anterior pituitary. So the first and the most important hormone is the growth hormone. Now this growth hormone is controlling the height of the individual. It controls the calcium metabolism. It controls the muscle mass in our body, and it also helps in reducing the fat tissues in our body. So as the name is suggestive, growth hormone helps in the growth of the body. Next hormone is prolactin. This prolactin is actually stimulating the breast to produce milk. So the stimulus for milk production within the body is this prolactin. Then there are hormones which help to stimulate the adrenal gland. One of them is adrenocorticotropic hormone. Now, this hormone secreted by the pituitary gland goes and stimulates, goes and activates the functioning of the adrenal gland. Then there is something which is called as TSH. Some of you might be knowing it when you go for thyroid checking, thyroid hormone checking. They check T3 and T4, but at the same time, they check TSH. Now, this TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, it comes from the pituitary gland. And as the name is suggesting, it stimulates, it activates the functioning of the thyroid. So if there is something wrong with the functioning of the thyroid, you also need to check whether the thyroid is getting a proper stimulus from the pituitary. So when there is a balance between the pituitary and the thyroid, then and then only the thyroid hormone secretion will be normal. Then it also produces something which is called as FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. So this follicle stimulating hormone FSH, it comes from the pituitary gland, and the function of this hormone is to stimulate the growth of follicles in the ovaries, or in simple words I would say the growth of the female eggs in the ovaries, and also for the synthesis, for the production of sperms in male. So when it comes to some diseases which are related maybe with infertility, it's not only the ovaries, it can be the pituitary also. So when it comes to yogic practices, in short, I would say the whole body, this whole endocrine system is to be considered, and bringing back the balance in this endocrine system is the aim or is the achievement with yogic practices. Yoga is all about balance. So this balance in the various glands of our endocrine system will be brought up by the various yogic. Like just now I mentioned about the follicle stimulating hormone. So If these sperms are not produced in some person, it can be a problem even with this follicle stimulating hormone which comes from the pituitary. So it's not only the testes that they are not producing the sperms properly, it can be the pituitary. Similarly, for the thyroid gland may not be producing enough hormones. Maybe the problem is not with the thyroid gland, but the problem is in the stimulus which the thyroid gland is receiving. So, a holistic view of this endocrine glands, of these hormones, is to be considered. The next hormone is LH, luteinizing hormone. So, this is another hormone which stimulates, which helps in ovulation and production of testosterone. Obviously, ovulation in women and production of testosterone in men. So, if there is not enough of luteinizing hormone coming from the pituitary, the gland in the eyebrow center, maybe the ovulation is disturbed, can lead to maybe infertility or any other diseases. Similarly, with the testosterone, it may not be produced in enough quantities. Now, the second part of the pituitary gland is the posterior part, the part behind. Anterior is in front, posterior is behind. So, one hormone, oxytocin, it is released from this posterior pituitary and it actually helps in the process of childbirth and also in the releasing of the breast milk. Interestingly, this is the hormone oxytocin, which is a bonding hormone between two people. It develops trust and love between two people. So the answer, now scientists have got the answer why there is an intimacy between the child and the mother, because this oxytocin hormone is released in very high quantities during childbirth, during labor. And then this hormone helps the mother actually to bear with the pains which she has during the childbirth. So it's a hormone of bonding. And then obviously it is not only the physiological functions which are carried out by these hormones, it is the emotions which are also affected by the levels of various hormones. So endocrine disorders, hormonal disorders are known to have an effect on your mood, to have an effect on your mind, to have an effect on your emotions. So again, the same principle, bringing back balance is the aim of practicing various yogic postures. Another hormone which comes from the posterior part of the pituitary is ADH, antidiuretic hormone. The name itself, it's antidiuretic. It reduces the water which is thrown out of the body. And obviously, it's the one which helps in water balance of the body. So this was all what we talked about the pituitary gland. Again, a reminder for you that this pituitary gland is the master of all the glands, thyroid glands, the adrenal glands, the pancreas, then the testes and the ovaries. So the function in one sentence, if I have to mention the function of pituitary gland in one sentence, I would say It helps to balance, it helps to control and stimulate all the other endocrine glands. Coming to the thyroid gland, the hormones which are secreted by thyroid gland, they are T3 and T4. And then these hormones, they are prepared from the elemental iodine, which we get from our food. The body cannot produce iodine. We have to have it from our food. The main function of this thyroid gland, many people are familiar, it's becoming quite common, and people are very familiar with these two words, hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. In simple terms, hypo is the thyroid hormones or the thyroid glands, they are functioning less. The levels of thyroid hormone are less than the normal. And hyperthyroidism is the levels of these hormones, the functioning of these hormones, the gland is at a higher level. Hyperthyroidism. Obviously, hypo and hyperthyroidism both are indications of imbalance. And then we say that yoga helps in thyroid disorders. Yes, it helps in balancing. Because simple example, most of you might be knowing that the shoulder stand is having good effect on the thyroid glands. Sarvangasana, shoulder stand. So the question comes, if it is good for thyroid glands, who is supposed to do it? People suffering from hypothyroidism or people suffering from hyperthyroidism? Ideally, both of them can do the same asana and they can bring their thyroid glands back to normal. Because yoga is a balancing practice. So someone having less of thyroid hormone, shoulder stand, Sarvangasana will increase the levels. And someone having very high levels of thyroid gland, the same asana will reduce the high levels back to normal. So that's how yoga works. As far as the functioning of the thyroid glands is concerned, it is controlling the metabolism of your body. So the energy expenditure, how much energy you produce, how much energy you utilize, how much energy you store, it's all controlled by the thyroid glands or the hormones of the thyroid glands. And but obvious, if it controls the metabolism, it helps in controlling the growth of our body. So, regulating the growth of our body, regulating the physiological processes of other systems is the function of the thyroid glands. For example, what I mean by this last statement, for example, someone having hyperthyroidism, you know that their heart rate is high, and someone having hypo, the heart rate might be low. The reason is it controls the rate of the physiological functioning of other systems, other parts of our body. So that is, in short, the functioning of the thyroid glands. The main functioning, there are many more functions of thyroid gland, but this is the main function, main functioning, main control of the thyroid gland. Now, apart from T3 and T4, there is one more hormone which is produced, which is secreted by the thyroid gland, and that is calcitonin. And this calcitonin, the name itself, you can understand that it is related with calcium metabolism. So it actually helps in building up the bones, building up the skeleton of our body. So it utilizes the calcium from the blood and brings it to the bone to construct the bone. That's the function of thyroid gland, the calcitonin hormone. And it is exactly precisely opposite of the parathyroid hormone. So what is this parathyroid? There are small glands by the side of the thyroid gland, and they are called as parathyroid gland. And the hormone is called as just PTH, or the parathyroid hormone. And what's the function of this hormone? It actually takes up calcium from the bone and brings it to the blood. So opposite to thyroid. Now two glands close to each other, the thyroid gland, it helps in making your bones strong, putting more calcium in your bone. And the parathyroid, it actually helps in removing calcium from the bone, increasing it in the blood. So two glands close to each other, and the work is exactly opposite to each other. And again, but obvious that there should be a perfect balance between the working of the thyroid and the parathyroid, so that the calcium levels in your bone and the calcium levels in the blood will remain normal. Next is pancreas. Now, this is really a very surprising gland situated in our abdomen, and many of you know the name pancreas, or better, you know the name insulin. Now, this is the major hormone secreted by the pancreas, insulin. And you know that this insulin, it reduces the blood sugar levels. So someone who is not having insulin will have high blood sugar levels and will cause diabetes in that person. Diabetes is also very common nowadays. You very well know this disease, diabetes, where the sugar levels are very high in the blood. One of the reasons is this insulin is not produced properly, or this insulin is not produced in enough quantities. And this insulin, it comes from the beta cells in the pancreas. There are different types of cells. So one of the cells in pancreas, they are beta cells which produce insulin. And this insulin helps in reducing the sugar from your blood. So when the sugar from the blood is reduced, where the sugar goes, where, where the sugar goes, it goes to the cell, and the cell produces energy out of it. So insulin is one hormone from the pancreas. Another hormone formed from the pancreas is glucagon. It comes from the alpha cells of the pancreas itself. And this glucagon has an exactly opposite action. It increases the blood sugar level. So the stored sugar in our body, maybe the sugar which is stored in our liver, this glucagon will bring it back to the blood. So one single gland, pancreas, two different secretions, two different hormones, insulin and glucagon, from the same gland, and the work is exactly opposite. Insulin reduces the blood sugar level and glucagon increases the blood sugar level. Now, interestingly, if there is a balance between this insulin and glucagon, then our blood sugar levels will remain normal. But at the same time, if glucagon increases, it will increase the blood sugar level. And one of the reasons for increase in glucagon is stress. Actually, stress is reason everywhere. Stress can influence any gland, any hormone in our body. But then this glucagon can be influenced, and then because of high levels of stress, those people they are suffering from diabetes. And then there is one more hormone from the same gland, somatostatin, which comes from the delta cells. But then this is a inhibiting hormone. It is a suppressing hormone. It reduces the action of pancreas. It reduces the release of both the insulin and glucagon. So sometimes you need to slow down, you need to suppress, you need to stop the functioning of the gland, and then that will be done by the somatostatin. Moving on to next, adrenal gland, the most popular gland, I would say, because it's related with the stress hormone. So there are something, some hormones which are called as glucocorticoids. Now these glucocorticoids, it's one of the stress hormones, obviously, and then when these glucocorticoids levels they are increased, it increases your blood pressure, it increases your blood sugar level, and it reduces your immunity. So those people who are under extreme stressful condition, their immunity or their fighting power against diseases is lowered down. One of the reasons is this glucocorticoid, an immunosuppressive action. In simple words, I mentioned it reduces your immunity. Then another hormone from this adrenal gland is mineralocorticoids. The name itself, mineral, it maintains the balance of sodium and potassium in our body. So it's also responsible water regulation in our body. And then this adrenal medulla or the central part of the adrenal gland, it produces the most popular hormones which are known to us: adrenaline, noradrenaline, and dopamine. So these are all stress hormones which come up during the fight or the flight response, and it is actually preparing the body for that emergency situation. It is actually preparing the body to react fast and quick. So this adrenaline, noradrenaline, they're actually helpful hormones. They are protective hormones, but when they are in excessive quantities, then they will affect the functioning of the brain. They will affect the functioning of your mind, and then that's how stress affects you. But then up to a certain extent, definitely these hormones they are necessary for the functioning of the body. And this adrenaline and noradrenaline, they can go and affect the other hormonal balances, and then because of that, various diseases would be developed. Like for example, diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases, they will be developed because of these excessive levels of adrenaline and noradrenaline. So the stress hormones produced by the adrenal medulla. Then we come to the testes in men. So main hormone is definitely testosterone, and it's a male hormone. So it increases the mass and strength of your bones. It also helps in increasing the bone density. And then, but obvious, it also has a role to play in maturation of the sex organs. But not to forget that this hormone is essential for muscle mass and strength. It's essential for improving the density of your bones. Very, very important. And lastly, the ovaries. So the main hormone produced by the ovaries, they are progesterone and estrogen. So this progesterone is actually a hormone which supports pregnancy. So during pregnancy, the levels of progesterone, they are very high. They maintain the pregnancy throughout 9 months. So if the progesterone levels they drop down, the uterus can go into contraction, or there would be starting of childbirth. So to prevent that, progesterone is essential. It is necessary. And at the same time, it has an anti-inflammatory action. It's an anti-inflammatory action, very, very important. So progesterone is known to reduce inflammations in the body. And then it also has a role in regulating the menstrual cycle. But I'm not talking about it here because menstrual cycle in itself is a different topic which we can talk on about progesterone and estrogen and the levels during menstruation. And then definitely in regulating the menstrual cycle, progesterone has an important role. And then the next important hormone by the ovary is estrogen. Now, this estrogen is responsible for the female characteristics. And at the same time, comparable to testosterone, one of the functions of estrogen is improvement in height and growth of your body and metabolism. You can also see bone formation and protein synthesis. So under testosterone also I mentioned it helps in muscle building, mass of the muscle, bone formation. Similarly, in women, estrogen has the same function to do. It will accelerate the growth of the body, helps in the growth of the body. Now, one last thing I will mention, like I'm here mentioning growth of the body, it is estrogen. At the same time, if you remember, I mentioned under pituitary that pituitary helps in the growth of the body. So it's a coordinated effect, a synchronized effect, a balanced effect of the pituitary and the estrogen or the testosterone that the growth of the body takes place. I just gave you this example that all these hormones, all these endocrine glands, they are interrelated with each other. It's not that only one gland is functioning and the other gland is not helping it out. Similarly, you can see here estrogen helps to accelerate metabolism. Mainly, the metabolism is controlled by the thyroid gland. But here you can see that estrogen also has a supportive role in metabolism. So actually you need to know where the problem lies. someone gaining weight, too much of weight, or someone losing weight, you can't just blame thyroid for that. It can be some other hormone which is imbalanced. So, to sum up, again, I would say we need to have a holistic approach towards healing, towards balancing all the hormones, all the endocrine glands. You can't just have focus on one single gland and practice the yoga poses, practice the pranayam, practice different practices from the yogic books related only to that gland. You have to consider a balance, a synchronization as far as the work is concerned, as far as the function is concerned, of all the endocrine glands. So, with this, I think we can stop here for the basic understanding of the endocrine system and the various hormones, important functions of various hormones in our body. Hari Om.